Hello, nursing fans. We're here for anatomy and physiology, one of my favorite topics. And it's chapter 21 today, which is nutrition and metabolism. Page 411, nutrition and metabolism. About 2/3 of an adult's energy expenditure is used simply to maintain normal body function. The body, even at rest, consumes a tremendous amount of energy. Obviously, walking across a room or even picking up a book requires energy, but so does the beating of the heart, the conduction of nervous impulses, the movement of the lungs during respiration, and even the manufacture of new blood cells. In fact, the body needs a steady supply of fuel just to survive. As was discussed in the previous chapter, the body's source of fuel is food. Once consumed, the digestive system breaks food into usable components called nutrients, which are then absorbed into the bloodstream. That's just the beginning, however. The nutrients that enter the cells and undergo further reactions. They then enter the cells and undergo further chemical reactions called metabolism. It's through the process of metabolism that nutrients are transformed into energy or materials the body can either use or store. Page 412. Energy expenditure is measured by the output of heat from the body. In nutrition, the unit of heat often used is the calorie, the amount of heat or energy needed to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius. 1,000 calories is called a calorie with a capital C, or a kilocalorie. In other words, calories are the energy that the body uses as fuel. People obtain dietary calories through the consumption of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. The number of calories in food is a measure of the potential energy contained in that food. Not all food groups furnish the same number of calories. For example, carbohydrates and proteins both yield 4 calories per gram, while fats yield 9 calories per gram. For optimal nutrition, energy needs should be supplied by a balance of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, as well as vitamins and other nutrients. The body at work. The amount of energy the body needs at rest, such as that required for the heart to beat, the lungs to breathe, and the kidneys to function, is called the basal metabolic rate, BMR. The BMR for adults is about 2,000 calories a day for males and slightly less for females. Factors that increase metabolic rate include anxiety, fever, eating. The metabolic rate increases as the body processes the ingested food, and thyroid hormones. A number of factors influence the number of calories each person needs. See key factors affecting metabolic rate on this page. The next factor affecting caloric need is physical activity. Physical activity includes everything from brushing your teeth to jogging. The number of calories burned during a physical activity varies according to the person's body weight, as well as the intensity of the activity. To maintain weight, calorie intake must equal output. If you consume a greater number of calories than your body expends, you will gain weight. The opposite is also true. Consuming fewer calories than your body expends will result in weight loss. Fast fact: some foods, such as alcohol and those high in sugar, provide what's called empty calories. That's because these types of foods contain a large number of calories but relatively few nutrients. Fast fact: it takes an excess of 3,500 calories to gain 1 pound of fat. Key factors affecting metabolic rate. That includes the body size and composition. People who are larger or have more muscle mass burn more calories. Gender. Males tend to have less body fat and more muscle than women of the same age and weight. Consequently, they burn more calories. Another key factor affecting the metabolic rate is the age, because muscle mass declines with age, slowing the metabolic rate. Page 413. The hypothalamus contains control centers for both hunger and satiety, the feeling of being satisfied after eating. Recent research has identified a number of hormones that profoundly affect these centers. The following figure illustrates 5 key hormones affecting appetite. One of the hormones, ghrelin, stimulates appetite, while the other 4 suppress it. So if you look at the figure here, it includes leptin, which it states secreted by adipose tissue. Leptin signals the brain that the body has enough energy stores, such as body fat, and therefore suppresses appetite. Although leptin levels are higher in people who are overweight, obese people have built up a resistance to the appetite suppressing effects of leptin. Another one shown is PYI, peptide YY, which is secreted by enteroendocrine cells in the ileum and colon. Signals satiety and therefore serves as a prompt to stop eating. There is also ghrelin, which is secreted by parietal cells in the stomach, especially when the stomach is empty. Ghrelin produces the sensation of hunger. Ghrelin secretions decrease for about 3 hours after a meal. Insulin, that's shown here in the middle. Insulin levels increase rapidly after eating to counteract the rise in glucose levels. The amount of insulin released varies according to the amount of body fat. Like leptin, insulin alerts the brain as to the amount of body fat and therefore suppresses appetite. The last one shown is CCK, also called cholecystokinin. Cholecystokinin is secreted by cells in the duodenum and the jejunum. In addition to stimulating the secretion of bile and pancreatic enzymes, this hormone also suppresses appetite. Fast fact: ghrelin levels fall dramatically following gastric bypass surgery, suggesting that this may be one of the factors contributing to weight loss after the procedure. Okay, so on the slide, you can see the 5 that are involved with hunger and satiety. And let's look at this test question. What hormone stimulates the appetite? Is it A, ghrelin, B, leptin, C, peptide YY, or D, cholecystokinin? And the answer is A, because all of the others actually suppress the appetite. Nutrients. Nutrients used by the body for growth, repair, and maintenance include carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and water, as well as vitamins and minerals. Because the body requires fairly large amounts of carbohydrates, lipids, protein, and water, these are called macronutrients. On the other hand, the body needs only small quantities of vitamins and minerals. Therefore, these are called micronutrients. The body must obtain most of its nutrition, including most vitamins, minerals, 8 amino acids, and some fatty acids through diet. These are called essential nutrients because they're essential in the diet. Some nutrients, however, the body can synthesize because they're not essential in the diet. And these nutrients are called non-essential nutrients. The basic concepts of nutrition and metabolism were discussed in Chapter 2, Chemistry of Life. It may be helpful to review these topics before proceeding with this chapter. Carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are the body's primary energy source. We obtain carbohydrates by eating foods, particularly plants, that contain them. In plants, carbohydrates result from the photosynthesis, the process by which plants use energy from sunlight to take up carbon dioxide and release oxygen. In essence, the carbohydrates in plants represent stored energy. By consuming carbohydrates, the body has access to that energy. Dietary carbohydrates occur in three forms: monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. Monosaccharides are known as simple sugars. They taste sweet and they are absorbed through the small intestine without being broken down. Examples include glucose, fructose, which is fruit sugar, and galactose. Disaccharides are also called simple sugars. They are broken down into monosaccharides during the digestive process. Examples include sucrose, which is table sugar, lactose, milk sugar, and maltose, which is a sugar found in germinating cereals such as barley. Polysaccharides are known as complex carbohydrates, and they consist of the starches found in vegetables, grains, potatoes, rice, and legumes. Polysaccharides include cellulose as an important polysaccharide, which will be covered in the body at work on this page, which I can read now. The body at work. Because the body can't digest cellulose, it's not considered a nutrient. Nevertheless, cellulose still makes an important contribution to the diet in the form of dietary fiber. A major component of plant tissues, cellulose absorbs water in the intestines and swells. This adds bulk to the stool, which stretches the colon and increases peristalsis. In turn, this allows stool to pass more quickly out of the body. Because the body continually burns carbohydrates for fuel, they should form the greatest percentage of the diet. Specifically, average adults should obtain 40 to 50% of their calories from carbohydrates. Very active people may need to obtain up to 60% of their calories from carbohydrates. Most of the carbohydrates consumed should be complex carbohydrates. That's because these foods contain other vital nutrients in addition to carbohydrates. Also, the body absorbs complex carbohydrates more quickly than simple sugars, which helps prevent unhealthy spikes in blood glucose levels. Page 415, lipids. Lipids or fats act as a reservoir of excess energy. Specifically, excess carbohydrates are converted to fat. Then, during periods of decreased food intake, fat reserves can be mobilized and broken down to release energy. Fat is an ideal substance for storing energy. Not only is it more compact than carbohydrates, it's also more energy dense. Each gram of fat contains 9 calories per gram compared to 4 calories per gram of carbohydrate. Fat fulfills other key roles in the body as well. For example, fat enables absorption of certain vitamins. Vitamin A, D, E, and K are fat soluble, meaning that they depend on dietary fat to be absorbed by the intestine. Fat contributes to cellular structure. Dietary fats can be converted to other lipids such as phospholipids and cholesterol, which are major structural components of cell membranes and myelin. Cholesterol also acts as a precursor to steroid hormones, bile acids, and vitamin D. Fat insulates and protects the body. Besides insulating the body to conserve heat, fat also surrounds delicate internal organs to prevent them from damage. As was discussed in Chapter 2, fats can be saturated or unsaturated depending on the structure of their carbon chains. Saturated fats are derived mainly from animals and they tend to be solid at room temperature, found in meat, egg yolks, and dairy products. Include hydrogenated oils, oils that are processed so as to make them solid at room temperature, such as vegetable shortening and margarine. Unsaturated fats occur in nuts, seeds, and vegetable oils. They tend to be liquid at room temperature. Fast fact: excessive consumption of saturated fat has been linked to arteriosclerosis, heart disease, diabetes mellitus, and even breast and colon cancers. Ideally, fat should comprise no more than 30% of an adult's daily intake, with no more than 20% being saturated fat. For example, based on a 2,000 calorie a day diet, fat intake should be limited to 4 to 700 calories or 44 to 78 grams. Of that, less than 10% should be saturated fat. A specific type of saturated fat commonly found in commercial baked goods and snack foods is trans fat. Trans fat results when a hydrogen is added to liquid vegetable shortening during food processing to make it more solid. Trans fat increases the risk for heart attack and stroke, which is why the American Heart Association recommends limiting trans fat consumption to no more than 1% of the daily calorie intake. The body can synthesize most of the fatty acids it needs. However, there are a few, such as linolenic acid, which is a necessary part of the cell membrane it cannot synthesize. Called essential fatty acids, these fats must be obtained through the diet. They are found in such foods as vegetable oils, whole grains, and vegetables. Fast fact: processed foods typically contain saturated fats because they resist becoming rancid and because they tend to remain solid at room temperature. Page 416. Proteins fulfill a vast array of functions in the body. For example, proteins are a major component of all cellular membranes. In addition, they make up much of the structure of bone, cartilage, tendons, ligaments, skin, hair, and nails. Antibodies, hormones, and hemoglobin, as well as about 2,000 different enzymes, also consist of proteins. In fact, about 12% to 15% of the body's mass is made of protein. The body contains over 100,000 different proteins. Each of these proteins consists of various combinations of just 20 different amino acids. See the body at work on this page. During the process of digestion, proteins are broken down into their individual amino acids. Once absorbed, the body recombines the amino acids to create a new protein for a specific purpose. Foods that supply all of the essential amino acids are called complete proteins. Foods that lack one or more essential amino acids are called incomplete proteins. Nutritionists once thought that for the body to create new proteins, all amino acids needed to be present simultaneously. In other words, they felt it was necessary to consume all 9 essential amino acids at each meal. Recent studies have shown, however, that the body can combine complementary proteins that are consumed over the course of a day. Complete proteins come mainly from animal sources and include meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. Incomplete proteins come from plant sources and include nuts, grains, and legumes. Fast fact, it's possible to obtain all essential amino acids from plant sources by combining a food deficient in one amino acid with another food containing that amino acid. For example, combining beans, which are deficient in the amino acid lysine, with rice, which is rich in lysine, forms a complete protein. The body at work. The body can synthesize 11 of its 20 amino acids. Because it's not necessary to consume them through diet, they're called non-essential amino acids. Keep in mind that these amino acids are still essential in the body. The remaining 9 amino acids are called essential amino acids because they must be obtained through food. The following table lists the names of the body's 20 amino acids. The essential amino acids are histidine, isoleucine, leucine, lysine, methionine, phenylalanine, threonine or threonine, tryptophan, and valine. The non-essential amino acids include alanine, arginine, asparagine, aspartic acid, cysteine, glutamic acid, glutamine, glycine, proline, serine, and tyrosine. Vitamins. Besides carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins, the body also requires small amounts of organic compounds called vitamins. Vitamins are mostly incorporated into coenzymes, molecules that support enzymes in the metabolic processes. Other than vitamin D, which can be formed by exposure of the skin to the sun, the body cannot manufacture vitamins. Therefore, vitamins must be obtained regularly through food. Vitamins are classified as either water-soluble or fat-soluble. Water-soluble vitamins are absorbed with water in the small intestine, after which they are dissolved into body fluids and then excreted by the kidneys. Because water-soluble vitamins aren't stored in the body, The risk of toxicity or hypervitaminosis is slight. However, toxicity can still occur from megadoses of water-soluble vitamins, such as vitamin C. Fat-soluble vitamins are absorbed with dietary fat, after which they are stored in the liver and fat tissues of the body until needed. Consequently, megadosing may lead to toxicity. Vitamins A, D, E, and K are fat-soluble vitamins. The following table outlines the major vitamins along with their dietary sources, their function, and the symptoms of deficiency. So the first vitamin listed is vitamin C, which is also called ascorbic acid. The dietary source of vitamin C is citrus fruits and green vegetables. The functions of vitamin C are for the synthesis of collagen, antioxidant, red blood cell formation, wound healing, and aids in iron absorption. Deficiency symptoms are those of scurvy. There's degeneration of the skin, bone, and blood vessels. For vitamin B1, which is also called thiamine, the dietary sources are red meat, eggs, and legumes. The functions are carbohydrate metabolism, blood formation, circulation, central nervous system maintenance. Deficiency symptoms are beriberi, which is a nervous system disorder, and edema. For B2, which is also called riboflavin, the dietary source is meat, eggs, whole grains, and legumes. Functions, energy metabolism, cell respiration, epithelial, eye, and mucosal tissue maintenance. And deficiency symptoms include dry, scaly skin, corneal opacities, and keratitis. For B3, which is also called niacin, the dietary source is meat, fish, legumes, and grains. Functions, circulation, cholesterol level reduction, growth, stimulates the central nervous system, metabolism of carbohydrate, protein, and fat. Deficiency symptoms are dermatitis, dementia, and diarrhea. For B6, which is also called pyridoxine, the dietary sources are red meat, fish, green vegetables, and whole grains. B6 helps in the metabolism of amino acids and unsaturated fatty acids, antibody formation, and DNA and RNA synthesis. Deficiency might be indicated by dermatitis, anemia, and muscle weakness. B9 is also called folic acid. The dietary sources are vegetables and liver. The functions are synthesis of DNA, catabolism of lipids and amino acids, cell growth and reproduction, and red blood cell formation. A deficiency would be anemia. For B12, that's also called cyanocobalamin. The dietary sources are red meat, eggs, and milk. Functions are formation and maturation of red blood cells, nerve cell maintenance, and deficiency symptoms would be pernicious anemia. Another vitamin is biotin, that is from raw egg yolks, liver, peanuts, and tomatoes. It's necessary for cell growth, the production of fatty acids, and the metabolism of fats and amino acids. Deficiency symptoms include dermatitis, hair loss, and neurological symptoms. The fat-soluble vitamins are A, D, E, and K. So vitamin A is also called retinol. It's from fish oil, eggs, green and yellow vegetables. The functions are for growth, night vision, and maintenance of epithelial tissue. Deficiency symptoms include night blindness and dry, scaly skin. Vitamin D, also called calciferol, is from fish oils, eggs, milk, and liver. It's for calcium and phosphorus absorption and metabolism and the development of bones and teeth and normal blood clotting. Deficiency symptoms would be rickets in children and osteomalacia in adults. Vitamin E is also called tocopherol from fish oils, eggs, milk, seed oils such as corn and soybean oil. It's an antioxidant. It supports the normal muscle functions, fetal development, and myocardial perfusion. Deficiencies generally are reproductive disorders. The last one is vitamin K, which comes from vegetables such as cabbage, spinach, and tomatoes. The functions are that vitamin K is essential for normal blood clotting, and deficiency symptoms are blood coagulation disorders and hemorrhage. Fast fact: vitamins were originally named with letters according to their order of discovery. However, vitamins also have chemically derived names, such as ascorbic acid for vitamin C. Page 418, minerals. The body also needs various inorganic substances called minerals. Minerals are needed for numerous vital functions, including nerve conduction, brain function, heart contraction, and red blood cell formation. Good sources of minerals include vegetables, legumes, milk, eggs, fish, shellfish, and some meats. Most cereals and grains are a poor source of minerals, although minerals are typically added to processed cereals. Major and trace minerals. The first one is calcium from milk and other dairy products, greens, legumes, and sardines. It helps the formation of bones and teeth, blood clotting, muscle contraction and relaxation, and nerve function. Deficiency from calcium can cause numbness and tingling and muscle spasms or arrhythmias. Another major mineral is phosphorus from meat, fish, poultry, eggs, milk, and grains. This is important for the formation of bones and teeth, cell growth and repair, and it aids in the acid-base balance. Deficiency symptoms include bone degeneration. Magnesium is a major mineral from meat, seafood, nuts, legumes, grains. It's required for muscle relaxation and nerve impulse transmission and protein synthesis. Deficiencies of magnesium include nerve disorders and heart arrhythmias. Sodium is another major mineral from table salt, meat, seafood, and milk. It's critical for fluid balance, nerve and muscle function, and cell permeability. Deficiency of sodium usually results in weakness. Potassium is the last major mineral. We can find potassium in potatoes, melons, citrus fruit, bananas, meat, and most fruits and vegetables. It's imperative for nerve and muscle function and acid-base balance, as well as your cardiac rhythm. Without potassium, you may have symptoms such as muscle weakness and nerve disorders. Some of the trace minerals include iron, which is from liver, red meat, egg yolks, nuts, and legumes, and it's critical for hemoglobin production. Deficiency symptoms include anemia and fatigue. Iodine is a trace mineral from seafood and iodized salt, and it functions for thyroid hormone production and physical and mental development. Without it, you can get goiter and hypothyroidism. Selenium is a trace mineral found in grains, meat, fish, and dairy products. The functions are antioxidant and immune mechanisms. Deficiency would have a symptom of anemia. For zinc, that can be obtained in meat, seafood, and whole grains. Zinc is essential for wound healing, nutrient metabolism, and carbohydrate digestion. Insufficient zinc can cause delayed growth, rough skin, and poor appetite. Major mineral copper from legumes, grains, nuts, and organ meats. Copper is a component of many enzymes, and without it, you may suffer from fatigue and anemia. Fluoride is a trace mineral that comes from fluoridated drinking water, seafood, and seaweed, and it's essential for the formation of bones and teeth, and without it, you will have dental caries. Manganese is from greens, legumes, and grains, and it functions to help the formation of bone and activation of some enzymes. Without manganese, you will have delayed wound healing, dizziness, and menstrual disorders. Fast fact, about 4% of the body's mass consists of minerals. Of this, 3/4 is calcium and phosphorus, which are found in the bones and teeth. Page 419, metabolism. Well, let's take a look at the slide. There's a question. Non-essential amino acids are A, not necessary for metabolic processes. Not true. Synthesized by the body, yes. Or C, necessary for the synthesis of new proteins, or D, unavailable in most foods? And the answer is B. Non-essential amino acids are necessary for metabolic processes, but because they are synthesized by the body, they are not necessary in the diet. Non-essential amino acids are necessary for the synthesis of new proteins. So the answer is B. So now we'll talk about metabolism. Page 419. Once inside the cell, nutrients are transformed through metabolism into energy that the body can use immediately or store for later use. Metabolism involves two processes. Catabolism, used in the metabolism of carbohydrates and lipids. This process breaks down complex substances into simpler ones or into energy. Anabolism, used in protein metabolism, this process forms complex substances out of simpler ones. Fast fact, processes that occur without oxygen are called anaerobic processes. Those that require oxygen are called aerobic. Carbohydrate metabolism. All ingested carbohydrates are converted to glucose, most of which is immediately burned as energy. If the body doesn't need the glucose for immediate energy, it stores it as glycogen or converts it into lipids. The primary goal of glucose catabolism is to generate adenosine triphosphate, ATP, which the cells use for energy. This crucial task occurs in 3 distinct phases: glycolysis, anaerobic fermentation, and aerobic respiration, glycolysis. And you remember glyco means sugars and lysis means to cut. So glycolysis taking place without oxygen, glycolysis splits one glucose molecule into two molecules of pyruvic acid. Glycolysis releases only a fraction of the available energy. Further reactions are needed to release the rest of the energy. Which reactions occur depend on whether oxygen is available. When oxygen is not available, such as during intense exercise, when the demand for energy exceeds the supply of oxygen, anaerobic fermentation occurs. Most ATP, however, is generated in mitochondria, which require oxygen. So when oxygen is available, aerobic respiration is the pathway of choice. Fast fact, because glycolysis doesn't require oxygen, it can supply the cell with energy, although limited energy, even when oxygen is absent. Anaerobic fermentation. We're looking at a picture in the book. When oxygen is in short supply, pyruvic acid is converted into lactic acid. The lactic acid then travels through the bloodstream to the liver where it is stored. Later, during a period of rest, when oxygen becomes available, the lactic acid is converted back into pyruvic acid. At that point, the pyruvic acid can enter the series of reactions in aerobic respiration. Page 420, aerobic respiration. When oxygen is available, pyruvic acid enters the mitochondria and is converted into acetyl-coenzyme A, acetyl-CoA. This begins a series of reactions known as the citric acid cycle. This is followed by another series of reactions called the electron transport chain. The end result of all of these reactions is the complete breakdown of glucose into carbon dioxide, water, and more importantly, large amounts of ATP. Body at work. Because most cells depend on a steady supply of glucose for fuel, the body uses several mechanisms to maintain a consistent level of glucose in the blood. These mechanisms include glycogenesis, glycogenolysis, and glyconeogenesis. Glycogenesis, when the amount of glucose in the blood exceeds the body's needs, hormones stimulate the liver to convert glucose into glycogen, which is then stored in the liver. Glycogenolysis, when blood glucose levels fall, such as between meals, glycogen stored in the liver is broken down into glucose. The glucose diffuses into the bloodstream for use by the body's cells. Gluconeogenesis, the body also has the ability to create glucose from non-carbohydrates, such as fats and amino acids. This occurs mainly in the liver. Fast fact. Most body cells draw on energy supplied by both carbohydrates and fat. Some cells, though, such as neurons and erythrocytes, depend exclusively on carbohydrates for energy. That makes sense. To remember the terms related for the formation and breakdown of glycogen and glucose, keep the following in mind. Genesis means to create, lysis means to break down, and neo means new. Therefore, glycogenesis means the creation of glycogen. Glyconeogenesis means the creation of new glycogen, and glycogenolysis means the breakdown of glycogen. I will end this now for part 1 of chapter 21, and we will start back on page 421 for part 2. Thank you for joining.